up, guys? Welcome back to the Live Loud Life podcast. My name is Dr. Antonio, your host of the Live Loud Life podcast, and we are coming at you from Sukasa. It's been a lot harder getting in these shows and episodes at the office in between patients and whatnot, trying to get my workouts in and eat lunch. And so this is an admin day, and we're on the couch, and we got our coffee, and we got all things. We got all the little kid stuff. Little blue truck leads the way, scattered all over. And with that, what I wanted to talk about today is how to get your workouts or your training in when you're a busy parent and life crazy, right? This is part 2 of a movement motivation series, if you want to call it that. So the previous episode, if you have not listened to, you don't have to listen to it before this, but it goes over the recommended guidelines based on the activity. The recommended guidelines for exercise and aerobic capacity and resistance training for adults in the U.S. So I would suggest you go back through that because I think there's some important points in there that talk about the whys behind it. Obviously, everyone knows, yes, it's good to work out and train, but it dives down a little bit more and it talks about the differences of moderate training versus more vigorous, so on and so forth, and the baseline levels that we should be getting as far as recommended minutes or hours, so on and so forth. But I'm gonna challenge you because towards the end we talked about stats. 53% of adults are meeting the aerobic physical activity guidelines. Right, so half of you, and I think I'm trying to go off the top of my head here because I didn't have my computer back up. But the baseline is I think 2 hours and 30 minutes a week of moderate aerobic exercise. So steady state training, walking at a decent pace where you can still hold a conversation, right? But only 23% of you are meeting both the aerobic and the resistance training guidelines, meaning, resistance training, lifting some weights. Only 23% of adults are meeting both of those. So that shows us by default, we go towards aerobic capacity. And we still see this a lot too. And I think part of that is also slightly biased towards our population of being here in Boulder County and Colorado, where we have a lot of people that love endurance sports, running, biking, so on and so forth. And so that becomes a lot more challenging when you have kids. Like, yes, you can go run with your kid. And if you have a street jogging stroller and things like that, but I mean, some parents crush it with that, but I'll tell you what, I hate running with a stroller. You got to have like one hand on all the time, and then only one hand's doing the swinging, or then you're switching, or you're kind of pushing the stroller and letting it glide, and then you're like jogging and trying to like catch up and staying right behind it. I hate it. It's not my jam. It's a lot easier to just run and then have the kids like on a strider or a bike or something like that. So for those that do it, kudos to you. That's amazing. I think it's very challenging, but it shows us that most of us default to aerobic capacity training, walking, running, biking, so on and so forth. But we need both. We need both. And I'm not saying, if you can do that, only do the other, because within that, we're talking about aerobic training, which could be a walk, right? Going at a moderate pace on a walk is still a fantastic way to get your aerobic capacity minimum guidelines in. And I would say the majority of the adults that we work with and know, they are doing that obviously outside of the winter months and everything else. They're getting a lot of those days in those family walks. Now, depending though, when you have kids, and I'm not saying, you have to change how you do your walks, but some of our walks are more quote unquote exploration based, letting the kids just look at everything, explore the rocks, explore the street, explore the flowers and the trees, which is an amazing learning opportunity for their inquisitive minds. But there's other times where it's like, hey, we need to get our walk in. Like we want to kind of keep a pace and we want to go. And we're not trying to suppress their curiosity or anything like that. We're just trying to move, right? We're just trying to move. And so, there's pros and cons and different elements you have to take in consideration for that. But that's a super easy place to start, right? Is making sure you're getting your walks in. And obviously, geographically, that could make it harder for certain people. But as stated in the last episode, we saw mad creativity come out of COVID, where people were basically, doing the equivalence of marathons, walking marathons within their small apartments by just doing laps, right? Super monotonous, but you can get it done. But what we want to talk about is also the resistance training aspect of that. At a minimum, we're looking for 2 days a week. 2 days a week of you doing some form of resistance training. Now, the hard part here is a lot of people don't have the necessary equipment to be able to do proper resistance training at their house. When I ask most of my patients, that are not going to the gym, hey, what kind of weights, or do you have any weights at home? Very commonly, what we'll hear is, I got a couple light weights. I got some 5 pound, maybe up to like a 10 pound set at home. Wonderful. You got something. But most people, that's not enough. And as stated in the previous episode, there are going to be some times and some movements where we want some weights that make you kind of go, right? That make you grunt a little bit. That's where you're hitting a weight that's going to actually elicit some adaptation for muscle building, tendon strengthening, and bone density building movements. You got to do something that's a little bit heavier, and that is harder if you don't have the equipment. Now, that's not to say you have to go buy a whole gym, right? Costco had a rack of 15 to 30 pound dumbbells for $300, which was like $1.20. So it's $200. 200 pounds in weight, and so that's about $1.50 per pound, which is extremely good deal when you're looking at weights. $300 right there, right? That's a couple months of a gym membership at best, and now you have it for life, and it doesn't take up a lot of space, and you can do so much with that, especially as you start getting up to 2 30-pound dumbbells. Now, from there, you got to know how to move, right? You got to know different things to do. And again, in the previous episode, we talked about the compound lifts, such as squatting and deadlifting and push-ups and just a military press or rows, all of those things that really help you hit a lot of different body parts within doing a single movement, which is great if you're a busy parent because you need bang for your buck. I want to get in, I want to do my stuff, and I want to get back out because I got other stuff to do. Dishes, laundry, business stuff, whatever that is, getting in and getting out is important. Now, how do you structure this? How do you structure this on a given week based on having a busy life as a parent? Now, obviously, so much of this depends on the age of the kids, what they're able to do, what you have to be able to do for your kids, the activities are in, so on and so forth. And I will say one thing, our kids are just now getting into, different sports and athletics, but, I'm not going to lie. If it starts getting to the point where we have so many of these things and there's outdoor sports, I'm definitely going to be that parent who's going to be packing my kettlebells and my weights in the car and going to be working out during soccer practice or doing something integrated into it. And it doesn't have to be, and this is where I think so much gets lost, is like, so many people they assume that in order to get a good workout, I can't have my kids around. I'll be honest with you, especially if you're a newer parent with little kids, it ain't going to happen. You can try to plan it around nap times, right? You can definitely do it around nap times. And that's one of the things we suggest, because what happens is so many times people are just like, oh, kids down, I got all this other stuff to do. I'm like, what things do you really have to do when the kid is awake? Right? When your littles are awake, what things are you able to do when they're still awake? Laundry is super easy when a kid's awake. Dishes are super easy when a kid's awake. Cleaning is super easy when a kid's awake. Weightlifting, swinging kettlebells around and things like that, a little bit more challenging, right? Now, with that, we've gotten these plastic gates and different things where I've either encircled myself so no one can come in, or I basically barnyard and corral the kids in a certain area where they can't get over to where I am to create safety barrier, right? And will kids cry and be upset about it? Yeah, but they get used to it. If you're consistent with kind of teaching them, hey, this is mommy or daddy time to do my thing, and you're good there. You got your toys and you're going to do your thing and I'm going to do my thing. They're going to get used to it and they're going to be okay with it. And if they're not, Well, then you plan it around nap times and those other times that we had just indicated, right? But so much of this comes down to planning, just setting yourself up for success. So rather than like, oh crap, it's like it's 4:30, I still want to work out, but I got to cook dinner, all this stuff. That makes it a lot harder to do when it's just a scramble. And there are days where that'll happen where, everything falls apart for whatever reason and you're just trying to get it in. There's nothing wrong with that. But the more times than not, if you're able to schedule and plan it, you're going to get it done. Okay. Now, as previously stated as just stated in the previous example, there are times where I have a kettlebell in the kitchen and I'm doing goblet squats and swings and other things in between the meal prep of cutting veggies and getting things ready to go for dinner. Like that can happen. That's the season of life. And we've said this time and time again, the season of life of being a parent is constant adaptation, right? A poopy diaper or this, if you're potty training, there's a spill, there's an accident, like it never goes perfectly the way you plan, but having a better plan is at least going to allow you to adapt and roll with it, especially as different things come up, right? Now, the reason why this is the 2-part series with the physical activity guideline recommendations is most of us assume that it has to be perfect and we have to be doing more, when that is not necessarily the case, right? An imperfect plan is better than no plan, right? You're in the game. You got skin in the game and you're doing something. Actually doing something rather than nothing is better because, again, you're actually doing something, right? So let's say, for instance, I know we had the 2 days a week of resistance training we talked about, but if you're at least walking 7 days a week at a moderate pace, I'm happy with it. That's a good place to be starting. That's a good place to be balancing off of setting a foundation. Do we want to add in resistance training and some other things? Hell yeah. But it might take a little time and it might be a little bit harder depending on where you're at, but that's okay. You're at least doing something, right? But we set up with the physical activity guidelines so that we know where we need to start and how we can go about it from a baseline level. Once you get that rolling for you, then you have all these different ways that you can go out from there, picking and choosing what things work best for you, picking and choosing the activities you like, picking and choosing things based on the equipment you have, and or then having the opportunity to get more things that you enjoy doing to build out a home gym, whatever that is. So it's possible. It's doable. Is it hard? Very hard. There's, again, especially when you're talking about toddlers not sleeping and not having energy, you have to take all that into consideration. So there are some, and I'm in no way saying you need to get these because these are more based on, higher athlete and team trainings, but there's things out there that they're called ready state training essentially, right? So on any given day, and there's different programs and things out there where if you're taking the program and asks you these questions, where it's basically stating like, hey, how do you feel today? What's your energy level? How was your nutrition today? Did you have coffee today? Did you drink last night? Like all of these things that would affect how you're operating today. And I think that's important because what we will commonly see from two different sides of the spectrum with parents is the parent that has to get it in, right? And the excuse is always, well, for my mental clarity, I need to be doing these things. Okay, great. I'm not going to say what you need for your mental clarity or not, but you have to understand that when you put such a stringent stringent restriction on such things, you end up running yourself into the ground. So regardless of how their sleep is or their nutrition is or whatever that is, they're always getting this like their miles in and their pace and they're running in or they're lifting in, and then they tank and crash hard. Right. On the other side, we see the same thing, but it's like, oh, I haven't slept or this, and this. And so I won't do anything at all because I'm super tired. So we want to find something in the middle, right? You have to understand that, like, let's say, for instance, you have a kiddo that's going through a sleep regression right now, and you're getting, you might be getting 2-3 hours at a time, but you're still getting woken up like 4 to 5 times a night, which has happened to us. And that puts a big burden on your sleep and is very disruptive. And we tend to wake up a little bit groggier. So on those days, my training intensity shouldn't be as high. I might drop that down to those moderate intensity days, but I still need to move because that's going to help with my energy, and it's going to help just awaken my body and keep me moving and reduce stiffness and everything else. And so there's still a ton of benefit into moving, but I have to take that in consideration. Whereas then if I have a great night of sleep and my nutrition's on point, I'm getting all my water in, so on and so forth, and I wake up, I feel great. Okay, those are days where I can go a little heavier because I've been recovered and my body is actually ready. Okay. So those are important things to talk or to think about as you're going in and out. It's an ebb and flow. And I always use this example for resistance training, more so about resistance training than exercise. But it's kind of like a soundboard in a production studio, right? You're going to hear something that's a little off, so then you can equalize and change certain things to balance everything so that you're getting the product and the outcome that you want, right? So on a day where I did not sleep as well, I'm going to decrease that intensity so I still get the product that I want, but I manipulate the controls to help me facilitate that. Whereas, if I'm feeling great, I'm going to kind of expand and ramp things up a little bit more so I get a little bit more output, but I still get overall with the overall understanding that the product is a long game, and every day I'm trying to ebb and flow the curves of the ups and downs to maintain that product based on my goals, so on and so forth. So I hope this was helpful. Super doable. Again, is it hard? Yes. Planning is important. Knowing obviously what things to do, knowing how to do the workouts or the movements, well, not necessarily the workouts, but the movements, how to pair those things together. So if you don't know these things, get a coach. Personal trainers. You can Google, online coaching, and there's a ton of options out there. Now it's definitely kind of hard to sift through what's good and what's not. But a lot of starter programs out there are wonderful to think about. And then you decide the intensity based on how you feel. You don't have to always just do and say what they do. That's also true if you go to a class just because someone's saying add more weight or go faster or go harder. You know your body. You need to be able to listen to your body. Now, is it good to be pushed? Yeah, I'm not saying that, but you have to take all that information into account. Now, if you're unsure, we love to help you out. Sometimes it's just, again, taking those basic movement patterns: push, pull, hinge, squat, carry, lunge, and saying, hey, this is how you might use this on any given week with the exercises you have. And that could just be like a one-off consultation, or you might have something put together ready and just want someone, you want a second opinion, you want a coach's eye on it to look at it to see if what you're doing is working out and working well with your plan. We'd love to help you out with that. You can reach out to us via email, hello@liveloudlife.com, LIVELOUDLIF as in Frank and Edward, .com. And, we'd love to help you out with that. But again, there's so many resources out there for people, not to deter you from using us, but there's not a shortage, we'll say that. So minimum guidelines, get those in, get the resistance training days in, schedule for yourself, set up a system that allows you to set up a system that helps you set you up for success, whether that's getting more equipment, whether that's sectioning off a certain part of your house. We don't live in a very big house, and it's tight with all the kids stuff that we have. But we got a space in the garage, and we got a space inside, and we just keep our stuff there, and then we kind of utilize the space that we have, and we do it around the kids if we can, or if we have to, and we also do it around nap time. So it's doable. And again, we know the benefits, right? I'm not going to harp on the benefits of why you should be doing it. Everybody knows we need to be exercising. We should be exercising. Previous episode gives you the baseline recommendations as a starting point, and then hopefully this gives you some more ideas of application. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you know another parent that's struggling with getting their working out or their training in, please share this with them, because I guarantee it'll help them. This is the exact same conversation. Obviously, our conversations are a little bit specially tailored to the individual right in front of us. But if you want to have that conversation, we can. But this is the exact same conversation and starting point that we help our parents with, to help them get their movement in, to get their exercises, and to feel to feel more exhilarated, to feel more alive about what they're doing. Because, there's times where I get down, I'm like, I'm gonna get my workouts in, my energy's low, so on and so forth. And then I just go back to like, okay, well, this is what my week is. I'm gonna do it here. I'm gonna do it here. I'm gonna do it here. And then the momentum starts rolling, and then I can get going. So if we can be that little kick in the butt for you and, North Star aim you in the right direction, we'd love to do that. But so thanks for tuning in, guys. Live loud. See you next time.